Hello. You want what? New brake pads? I changed your brake pads last week. Yes, and your tyres. You don't need a full tank of petrol. We never go that far. Honestly, you are so high maintenance. Next time I'm taking the bus. This week, Click reports from Vietnam, a country full of entrepreneurs and motorbikes. We look at the technology that keeps your bike secure with just a SIM card. And we head to the town that wants to become a haven for Vietnamese tech startups. We sit down with the biggest name in 3D movies and ask him, hasn't it all gone a bit flat? And we meet the kids enlisting computer games in their battle with cancer. All that plus the latest tech news and a tool to protect your keys from prying eyes in Webscape. Welcome to Click. I'm Spencer Kelly. In the past few years, we've seen plenty of countries try and reinvent themselves by embracing technology. Now, sometimes the culture in that country can get subsumed by tech, but sometimes it works the other way around. And that's what seems to be happening in Vietnam. It has one of the fastest growing economies in the East, and it also has a particular passion for the motorbike. LJ Rich has taken a two-wheeled tour of Ho Chi Minh City's tech.
From picking up dinner to picking up a date, if it's more than a few steps, you may as well ride. This is the ethos of many a Vietnamese urbanite.
With entrepreneurs on every street corner and motorbikes, well, everywhere, and entrepreneurs on motorbikes, this is Ho Chi Minh City.
It certainly is an exciting place. Vietnam is now one of the fastest growing economies on the planet. With almost $1 billion spent on technology development by the government last year, the country clearly wants to be seen as a serious player when it comes to innovation. But the people's choice of transport, the motorbike, is an old technology. It's noisy and dirty. Some think it's time the bike cleaned up its act. Over the past year, the government has rolled out a new, environmentally friendly e-bike scheme. It's selected 30 of its workers to test them out.
In my opinion, it's very light. It travels very smoothly. Although every charge lasts for about 40 kilometers, but for me it's sufficient because I live near my work.
But in order to convince the nation, the government has a long journey ahead. The bike is a major status symbol here in Vietnam, and no one, not even the burgeoning middle class with their disposable income, will splash the cash on a green moto unless the bike looks the part. So, what better way to entice tech-savvy consumers than crowbarring an iPod dock in the dashboard? Plug in your phone and you've got an onboard computer. The integrated mobile tech offers the rider useful stats on the bike's battery life, motor temperature and fuel efficiency. With a price tag set to be amongst the top level of luxury bikes, the new model, catchily named A4000i, is due out in December, just the thing for Vietnam's young population.
The design is very fashionable. People will like it more because in the eyes of the Vietnamese, bikes are not only a means of transport, they are a valuable possession and people really care about how they look.
Here, any bike is better than no bike. The constant threat of theft hangs over all of Vietnam's 35 million riders. Thousands are stolen each year. A few blocks away, one startup is addressing this serious problem. Cieslak Viet is building a nimble little device that, once installed, is invisible to would-be thieves. Essentially, a small computer with a SIM card and a GPS transmitter. When a bike is stolen, it reacts to the change in its location and calls its owner. The owner then uses a smartphone app to locate their missing motorbike. Its precise location is worked out from both GPS coordinates and nearby mobile phone masts. Owners can also remotely trigger the bike's alarm or flash its lights, though this could be lost in the din of the city. Or they can shut down the bike completely, leaving our stunt thief here with no option but to abandon it. The price, though, is not exactly a steal, with an upfront cost of $120. Expensive, but the company says traditional security devices are not up to it anymore.
The other thing about a steering lock, we can unlock it about 5 seconds. Just use a small tool and plug into the lock and rack it.
Vietnam would love to see many more tech startups like Cieslak. And the government here has been trying to kickstart the market. An hour and a half's drive outside the bustling city lies the result, a tech hub. It offers $50,000 seed funding, housing, professional advice and those all-important contacts. This is designed to incubate and accelerate new tech businesses.
You need to understand the technology, the tech hub in Silicon Valley. You need to bring up the spirit of that area here and give the inspiration to people, you know? Helping drawing a roadmap, you know, building a highway for them. So they start with their dream and they get there and, you know, learning and building and, well, growing up with them. Actually, I'm one of them. I'm starting up something new and, yeah, I'm a startup guy, actually.
But 2 years after its birth, this tech hub is extremely slow in leaving the ground. Only one business has taken root here so far. Dozens of units lie empty, too far from the city for most young companies to commute. That said, the one that is here is making a huge splash. Klai is the only cloud storage service from Vietnam, available to the locals as well as neighbouring nations in Southeast Asia. At only a year old, it's already a major player internationally, making waves as far as Silicon Valley. But it's been no piece of cake to get here.
It's extremely hard, actually. It's so hard to do a startup, because startup, you see, we don't have much capital, we don't have much funding, so we have to provide products for all the customers and how to attract them without marketing expenses. So it's really, really hard.
But it's with the tech hub's help that Klai's business has blossomed. Perhaps others will now follow.
There's a very high rate of adoption, there's a high rate of interest. Vietnam particularly, because you had such a history of closed economy. So information, entertainment was very much closed until really the early 90s. So the ability to now be connected to the world means there's a much faster rate of adoption than you might see in a Singapore or a Hong Kong.
It's clear that the government wants to boost the international profile of Vietnam's tech sector, a profile that's already grown 25% year on year since 2000. But for some, this sits badly with the country's ongoing internet censorship. Earlier this month, a new law was announced, due to come into effect in September, which will ban online publication of anything contradicting the government, including messages on social media. The desire of the nation for an up-to-date tech scene is certainly there, but whether or not Vietnam will succeed in making a big enough name for itself is another thing.
LJ Rich in Vietnam. And next up, a look at this week's tech news. A group of tech companies are attempting to bring internet access to a wider number of people in developing countries. Facebook, Samsung, Ericsson, Nokia, Opera, Qualcomm and MediaTek are all collaborating on a non-profit initiative called Internet.org. Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg said the group's goals were to make internet access available to those who can't currently afford it. The group estimates that only about a third of the world's population currently has access to the net. This in the same week that Zuckerberg's own Facebook page was hacked. Palestinian programmer Khalil Shreitar had previously discovered and reported a Facebook security flaw. But after Facebook's security team rebuffed his attempts to report the flaw, Shreitar hacked the billionaire's personal Facebook wall, posting a message to prove the bug's existence. Amazon.com joins a list of high-profile websites and services which have experienced peak time outages within a few days of each other. Microsoft's Outlook.com and the New York Times website have also faced problems, as have all of Google's services, including Mail, YouTube and Drive, which experienced several minutes of downtime and led to a staggering 40% plunge in internet traffic. The cause of Amazon and Google's problems so far remains a mystery. And finally, researchers from the Korean Advanced Institute of Science and Technology have created a car which requires very little parking space. The Armadillo T is an electric vehicle which, at the touch of a button, transforms into a truly compact car. In its folded-up mode, the driver can guide this tiny transportation into a parking space using a smartphone app. If there's one technology that's been hyped and overhyped, it has to be 3D. James Cameron's 3D movie Avatar may well have been the highest grossing film of all time, but overall 3D ticket sales have been disappointing, and owners of 3D TV sets still have very little to watch. So, is it all a novelty that's fast wearing off? Well, that's a question that Richard Taylor put to the man behind those 9-foot blue Na'vi, James Cameron himself.
I think what you have to do is you have to look at the timelines. For me, it's absolutely inevitable that entertainment will be 3D. It'll all be 3D eventually, because that's how we see the world. That's my sort of answer based on faith, but it's actually quite logical. That's how we see the world, and we obviously, when it's correct and convenient for us, we pre-select for that as the premium experience. If you look at the last 4 cinematography Oscars, 3 of them went to digital 3D movies. Avatar, and then we missed a year, and then Hugo, and then Life of Pi. They were all shot with the systems that Vince Pace and I developed, and so the highest version of cinematography was deemed 3 out of 4 times in the last 4 years to be a 3D digital movie. So I think we associate it with quality in the cinema. However, that's getting eroded by certain things, like low light levels from the projectors, too much bad conversion. Those are all by the way, native 3D, photographic 3D, films. But then there's bad conversion. And people get confused because there's bad conversion and there's good conversion, because we did it right on Titanic, but it cost $18 million, and the studios don't usually spend that kind of money. So I think it's getting a bit polluted, and I think that people have had some bad experiences and so on.
That might help explain why cinema goers these days are frequently opting for a 2D version of a movie. And in the home too, it's also been greeted with a huge yawn of indifference. Those who have been seduced into buying 3D tellies barely use the feature, presumably because there's such a shallow pool of 3D content to enjoy. And if anything, it looks to be evaporating, with both the BBC and sports broadcaster ESPN announcing recently they're suspending 3D broadcasting. Despite all of this, the Avatar director remains bullish. When we can overcome the not insignificant issue of getting rid of those awful specs and find salvation in a glasses-free, so-called auto-stereoscopic experience.
The viewing paradigm is very different for TV than it is for movies. So what we need is auto-stereoscopic screens, and that's coming. My 3D company, CPG, is supporting the new Dolby Philips technology, which is gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous. The price point has to come down, but as that rolls out, then the amount of content will come back up.
So you envisage a day when the news would be in 3D?
Oh, absolutely, sure, yeah.
Despite what you may have heard in the media, not all video games are gory kill fests. In fact, there's a new crop of games on the horizon aiming to bring about social change in less violent ways. We sent Sumi Das to a Silicon Valley R&D company that's developing games aimed at children struggling with chronic illness.
Nanobot's Revenge may look like your standard issue video game, but it's actually helping these kids as they face the fight of their lives. On screen and off, these kids are battling the same foe, cancer. This online game is part of a new free collection called Remission 2, developed by Hope Lab, a Silicon Valley-based non-profit company that aims to use technology to improve health.
Each game puts players inside the human body to fight cancer with a variety of weapons like chemotherapy, antibiotics, the body's natural defenses.
In Remission 2, tumor cells are the enemy. You kill them using chemoblasters. The WBC, or white blood cell worm. And prednisoldiers, named after prednisone, a drug many patients take. According to Hope Lab's research, players were more likely to stick to their treatments and view chemotherapy as a means of defense rather than a dreaded obligation. Even patients who've struggled with leukemia since they were very young reportedly felt greater control over their illness.
When you play games, you don't really notice that you're sick because you're just zoned in. That's usually why I play. And it's fun, of course.
It's a different form of escapism in a sense, where you just spend a little bit of time, but you get to forget for a little bit of time instead of having to put away a large chunk of time to really get into it.
But can a video game really make a difference?
We conducted a follow-on study using brain imaging technology. Playing Remission, even in short bursts, was really a powerful way to light up these incentive and reward centers in young patients' brains.
Designed with the help of behavioral psychologists, the games include many parallels to living with cancer.
In the game, there are times where you run out of energy and you have to actually pause, so timing becomes really critical as well, both from a gameplay perspective, but it also correlates to what's actually happening for the patient.
It's very sneaky the way you worked in all those lessons.
Well, sometimes we call it stealth health.
That'll please parents, but Hope Lab didn't want the game to flop with kids, so they turned to cancer survivors like Nico Pooks for input.
It definitely allows you to see, well, the chemo is not just like making you really tired and giving you a lot of pain, it also is serving a purpose.
Nico suggested tweaks while he was in isolation following a bone marrow transplant. But does it stack up to the big budget titles?
I actually compare pretty good with all the other games I play. They have a little bit of everything in it. Action, you know. Pretty much everything that a kid would like.
Without a marketing machine, Hope Lab relies on other means to get its games in front of players. It's ventured into mobile, so kids can play in hospital rooms or at the doctor's office.
I can't use the white blood cells on the guys that block you anymore.
It was difficult at times to get patients with short attention spans to concentrate on my teaching, which took quite a bit of time. So this was another way they'd always want to go play their Angry Birds and things. So I realized that these games can help them kind of learn about their diagnosis and treatment.
Imagine you're a kid and you've been diagnosed with leukemia. Would you rather learn about your illness by reading books or by playing a video game?
Remission 2 helps patients visualize the strange things happening in their bodies. And just like a picture, playing the game is worth 1,000 words.
Sumi Das in California. Now, phishing, where scammers attempt to trick us out of our personal information online, is estimated to have cost the world more than $1.5 billion last year. But fortunately, as the criminals are getting smarter, so are the countermeasures, as Kate Russell will now ably demonstrate in this week's Webscape.
Phishing emails and malicious websites that deploy keylogging software to mine your personal details are a very real threat if you don't take proper precautions. Of the 294 billion emails sent every day, around 1.5 billion are phishing attempts. So always be cautious about what you click. To be doubly sure, you could install some anti-keylogging software like Key Scrambler. Social media, online banking, and mobile internet, these things all increase the risk of identity theft. An anti-keylogger like this will scramble your keystrokes so they can't be read by an intercepting party, malicious or governmental. But it won't prevent screenshots being taken, which is another common practice with malware designed to steal your information. The personal version is free and covers around 30 browsers. If you upgrade to the paid versions, you'll gain protection for email clients, password managers, and even popular games, with the full Monty covered if you go pro. Smartphone cameras are fantastic quality these days, and you can soon build up a huge collection of digital memories that just sit around gathering dust. Storymaker is a BlackBerry 10 app that's definitely worth firing up to turn your albums into beautifully animated slideshows with just a couple of taps.
I say love, it is a flower.
You can add photos and video clips, building the storyboard up and shuffling things about until you're ready to add a backing track and save the finished film to be viewed as a video on your handset and also shared in all the usual ways. In the time-honoured tradition of TV, here's one I made earlier of the flowers in my garden.
In the spring.
There are even some great visual effects and style templates that can be applied to both images and videos in real time.
All right, who needs saving?
Ah, it's you. Never seen you before.
Animated movies are great fun, and now, thanks to a new iPhone app, Disney Action, you can star in your own alongside Mr. Incredible, Sully from Monsters, Inc., or Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean. The basic features are free, with paid coin bundles if you're in a hurry to get more.
Where exactly am I? Seems a bit like a dream.
The app isn't exactly bursting with content, but what is there is pretty effective and will definitely be good for a few minutes' entertainment.
Watch out!
Google paid almost $1 billion for crowdsourced mapping company Waze back in June. And we are now beginning to see some results, with some key features being shared this week. For Google Maps on iOS and Android, that means real-time incident reports and traffic alerts from Waze's army of contributors. The Waze app has added Google Search, and the map editor now has satellite imagery and Google Street View, paving the way, quite literally, for even more accuracy in the future. Redesigned and relaunched this week, Owl is a site that helps UK citizens find and join their local neighbourhood watch scheme. You can register for alerts about any notable criminal activity in your area by SMS, email, phone or fax. This can help vulnerable people be more aware of confidence tricksters knocking on doors or a spate of opportunistic burglaries. In the last 12 months, 9 million messages were sent out about 12,000 separate issues. This free service has been said to help cut burglaries in every police force that uses it, and there are 27,000 watch schemes across the country taking part. So definitely worth registering if you want to help keep your neighbourhood safer.
Thank you, Kate. Kate's links are on our website, of course, if you missed them. bbc.co.uk/click, the only address you really have to remember. And if you'd like to comment on anything that you've seen this week, we would welcome your emails. Click at bbc.co.uk, the address there. You'll also find us on Twitter, Google+, and Facebook too. That's it for now, though. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you next time.